When Rasulullah ﷺ, he would teach, when he said Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, he asked him, how are you going to do things? And he says, I will do things according to the Quran. And he says, what if you don't find something in the Quran? And he says, I will do them according to the hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. And he says, what if you don't find your solution in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? He says, I will use my logic at that time without making sure, without going against any ayah of the Quran or hadith of Rasulullah ﷺ. So this is where our Sharia is. But once again, the question is, when we look at the current state of the ummah, and how people are trying to change the deen today, people are trying to reform the deen today, the question is, how did we get here as an ummah? The very first thing that I will state is how we got here today is that many of our upcoming generations, many of our children, in fact many adults here, they fell into the situation that they're not able to differentiate between what is religion and what is culture. There were so many people, unfortunately perhaps they did exist in our life, that they taught us something about Islam, or they presented to us as Islam, but it was not Islam, it was culture. And there are so many examples on a day-to-day basis. I hear problems from people, I hear their situation, I hear their dilemma and so forth. And as parents, and as adults, and as people in our families, we need to always remember that if culture is going to clash with the aspects of our religion, the core fundamentals of our religion, then that aspect of culture does not exist in our families. Today we do live in a time that so many of our youth and so many of our youngsters are leaving Islam. Why? Because they actually think that what they have been taught is part of Islam. Their parents have taught them that this is what Islam is, whereas they had nothing to do with Islam. It was their culture. It was their culture from overseas. It was their culture in their families. And those same kids today, they don't want to know what Islam is. Because this is what they were taught growing up is, this is what Islam is. And subhanAllah, when you sit down with those same youth, when you sit down with those same young professionals, and you begin to teach them that this is not Islam, this is culture, that is the very first time they open their eyes. But brothers and sisters, this is one of the key things that is destroying the iman, that is destroying any kind of connection that anyone would have with Islam, is that we have mixed culture and religion. Brothers and sisters, remember that if you are presenting something as religion, and it is culture, and because of that, you are driving someone away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are going to be held accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You were the cause. You decided that your culture was so important to follow, even if it went against religion. But you felt that my culture is so important because this is my identity. Not realizing that that's not my identity. My identity is the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And because of me, someone was driven away from Islam. You have to stand before Allah and you have to ask yourself one simple question. What are you going to say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment? That my culture was more important than you, O Allah? My culture was more important than you, O Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? But this is what's happening today. And as a result of this, as a result of people going away from Islam, because they don't know the differentiation between culture and religion, is leading them to the second bigger problem that we have today in our ummah, is that we feel like that Islam needs to be reformed. We need to add other aspects in our society in order to make Islam complete. I don't need, let me make this very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He sent down the ayah on the day of Arafah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam deena." This is a complete package given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if anyone says that we need to add other aspects of our society in order to make our religion more complete, what you're basically saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, na'udhu billah, so incompetent that you're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He actually said that I have completed this deen, you're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, na'udhu billah, a liar. What you're saying is that Allah does not know what He is doing, but rather I, in my own opinion, when I think that other practices in our societies, they have to be part of our religion in order to save Islam, you are making a very strong and a very bold claim against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.